Collaborator? I barely know her. All right, we'll see how many episodes I can start like that. But let's talk about brand collaborations, licensing, and partnerships. From my times at Dugout Mugs as their CMO to now as the Vice President of Marketing for a regional grain, I've executed collabs with macro influencers from MLB All-Stars to Bob Marley, media networks like Barstool and John Boy, and some of the biggest brands in the world like Budweiser, Buffalo Trace, Toyota, Taylor Guitars, Indian Motorcycle, and most recently, Jack Daniels. Yes, I found a way to make business trips out of going to the World Series and my favorite whiskey distilleries. So my career's going about exactly how I predicted it was going to. But all these partnerships aren't solely because we like to have a good time. That's a great perk, but the truth is these partnerships have been massively profitable and brought a ton of awareness and respect to the brands that I've worked for. Today's episode of Tactical and Practical is sponsored by Intelligems. They are the ultimate profit optimization tool. I've been a paying customer and advocate of Intelligems for a year now, long before they ever sponsored my show. And it is a huge part of the reason why we are having back-to-back years of insanely fast and profitable growth. Go to intelligems.io and sign up. Plans start at just $100 a month. I can tell you the first tests we ran had incremental lifts of $10,000 and $20,000 and $30,000 a month, so it is well worth it. Now, let's get into the show. Let's zoom all the way out and take a kind of 100,000 foot view of brand collabs. If you could steal a legendary brand's loyalty and awareness, wouldn't you do it? At a regional grain, we just celebrated our 11th anniversary. And to still be growing as fast as we are in year 11, me and the guys are incredibly proud of that. But when you look at some of the brands we're working with, we're punching well above our weight class. Taylor Guitars are held in really high regard in the music industry, and they just celebrated their 50th anniversary. Bob Marley was one of the most influential artists, most influential people of the last century. Jack Daniels is one of the largest and most iconic brands to ever exist, and they started making whiskey over 150 years ago. On paper, we have no business partnering with these brands, but we've been able to incorporate their brand story into unique products that no one else can create. And now we get to reap the rewards of adding 100 years of history and heritage to a brand new product of ours because it's got the stamp of approval of their logo on it. That's why we pursue these partnerships. And that's how we introduce ourselves to new audiences. So today we're going to talk about the deal structure, how we choose the right partners, and how marketing these collaborative products differs from our normal marketing tactics, and ultimately how all these collaborations allow us to separate ourselves from our competition. The deals structure is actually pretty simple and uniform across the board. Very rarely do they require any money up front. Typically, we agree to a royalty fee ranging between 5 and 12%, a minimum guarantee on the total amount of royalties we'll pay them, and a time frame for how long the partnership will last. Most of these big brands that have done partnerships and licensing before have a template they'll want to follow. The only thing that affects me personally on the marketing side is we factor in the royalty to all of our COGS, and then we make sure we give these collaborations enough marketing support to make sure we hit the minimum guarantees. Now, that's kind of the boring stuff. Got that out of the way, but everyone always asks me about the deal structure. Now let's talk about choosing the right partners, because this is where you can have a lot of fun. We approach this in kind of two separate ways. Either we want a brand that can enhance something we're already doing, that we know we can crush, that our existing customer base is going to love. Or we look for a partner that's outside of what's normal for us as a brand. We look at it as a way to get a warm introduction to a new audience and a new type of customer to acquire. For example, let's take our best-selling collection, the Whiskey Barrel Watches. The guys at OG were selling Whiskey Barrel watches while I was still bartending my way through college, and they've been a top-selling collection the whole time. But in 2022, after a few old fashions, the three of us decided to partner with the legendary Kentucky distiller, Buffalo Trace. If you're not familiar with the world of bourbon, Buffalo Trace can be a hard bottle to get your hands on. It's not the most premium whiskey out there, Bottles don't cost thousands or even hundreds of dollars, but that rare bottle has made a name for itself as the pinnacle of quality for accessibly priced bourbon. To be honest, we saw a lot of our own brand in that description too. In the watch industry, we come nowhere near the most luxurious timepieces in price. But on the other hand, we're so much better than the $100 watches you can get on Amazon or all these cheap sites where people are just ripping off high-end watch designs and stuffing them with the cheapest movements they can get their hands on. But because of this alignment and where we each sit in our own industry, we all saw a great opportunity here. We struck a deal. We got wood from their bourbon barrels and created 2 watches in our most popular silhouettes. We incorporated their wood, colors, and logo into the designs, and they absolutely crushed. For a year and a half, every ad I launched with those products in it had our best engagement metrics of the entire ad account. Our customer base bought those at record speed, and they became one of our most profitable acquisition tools. But all good things must come to an end, and as we approached the end of our contract, we knew we wanted to find a new distillery to partner with. But we were at a crossroads. On one hand, we could choose to go even more premium than a BT. We mentioned brands like Pappy Van Winkle, whiskey that does cost thousands of dollars for a bottle. Or we could go for a little more American heritage, a little more mass market appeal with a distillery like Jack Daniel's. Ultimately, we acknowledge that as a brand, our sweet spot is, $300 to $600 watches. And at that price point, we resonate a lot more with the Jack Daniel's drinker than the Pappy Van Winkle crowd. So we got to work, and this time we launched 5 styles ranging in price from $300 to $600. And that launch has been a massive success so far. Now, both of those are examples of brands that we knew we were going to absolutely rip for us before we ever launched them. We knew our customer base would love it. And because we had been working in the world of whiskey for a few years already, we were 100% confident we could make these collections really impactful to our business. On the other hand, in the last year, we've launched some collaborations with Toyota Racing Development, Indian Motorcycle, and Bob Marley. These were 3 collabs that, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't 100% confident in when we launched. They're new categories for us. We hadn't tried using racing-grade aluminum in our watches before. We hadn't used hemp or bamboo and palm wood from Jamaica to try to tell an artist's story before. So once we inked a deal, I tried to become an expert at who the people were that we were going to have to market to. Our partners always provide brand decks and demographic info, but so much of my research ends up coming from YouTube and Reddit. When we approach marketing these collabs to a new audience, the way we execute our tactics can differ slightly. For the collabs that are very much in our lane, Buffalo Trace, Jack Daniel's, we take a sniper rifle approach. We already knew exactly what was going to work to sell these watches. And if you go to my Facebook ad library right now, you'll see a lot of Jack Daniel's ads that have the same exact vibe and aesthetic. We had a target we wanted to hit, and the creative team did an amazing job at hitting the bullseye. Now, when we advertise a new collection that's outside our normal realm of business, we take more of a shotgun approach. We cast a wide net in the aesthetic we shoot for, the graphic treatments we use in ads and emails, the copy and headlines we test, and pretty much our whole marketing funnel. Once we get a few pieces of creative and content that hit really hard, we double and triple down to try to scale up that new collection. So when we look back at all the negotiating and planning and research and lengthy approval processes, traveling for photo shoots and everything that goes into bringing these partnerships to life, we obviously want to make sure we're profitable on these deals. But today's profit isn't the only benefit. The strength it adds to our brand is truly immeasurable. The truth is there are other great watch companies out there. Companies that we often can't compete with on price. Companies that I certainly can't go toe-to-toe with when it comes to marketing budget. Companies that have a century of history. Companies that produce some of the most technologically advanced, watches in the world. But none of those companies have done partnerships with Jack Daniel's, the New York Yankees, or Bob Marley. And Original Grain has. When we factor in the profit from these deals, in addition to the brand value we're creating, we're essentially being paid to acquire customers and strengthen our brand at the same time. And for us, that is a massive win-win. So don't be afraid to shoot for the stars on this one. We have partnered with brands that do billions more in revenue than us and have been around 10 times longer than us. But we're able to provide them with something unique that only could be made by us. And we're much better off for it. So go collaborate your way to the top of your industry. I promise you won't regret it. Thanks for listening to Tactical and Practical. I'll see you next week.